Hey, what's up, guys? Already broke my streak. It wasn't even 2 weeks. It's supposed to take like, what, 30 days, 60 days to develop a habit? I'm sure it depends on the habit, but cool. Catch you guys up. So the reason I got knocked off my schedule is ultimately because I just didn't plan well enough. But the more superficial reason is that I went to New York for a couple of investor meetings to the Napa Institute. I left here at 3:30 and got 3:30 in the morning, and then got back here at 11:30 or so. So the meetings themselves went all right. One quote that kind of stuck out to me was I was talking to these two people who are just rich. They have a family fund and foundation or whatever, and the wife who manages the fund took time to express that she was really impressed that I found their contact and gotten them and whatnot. And this relates because earlier in a video I talked about how it might seem like pushy or desperate or I don't know what to like reach out to these people and be like, oh, like I want to meet with you or whatever. But these things always go well. I mean, like, people are never weirded out by you reaching out to them. They expect it. They just, like, the worst is like they're not going to respond. That's the absolute worst that's going to happen, unless you just make an ass of yourself. But it's too interesting. It's interesting too, making an observation. I've spoken with a friend of mine who's also entrepreneurial, just applied in a different realm, about how much of a benefit it is to be young and how much of a benefit that is, or an advantage, because people just are more willing to work with you. They're more encouraged, especially when I'm working on Catholic stuff. Like, there aren't really that many smart, hardworking, great young Catholic people working on these problems. It's usually like kind of like an old person problem. Like, oh, like now that we've had our successful career, now we'll start paying attention to our faith, which is really sad in and of itself. But big advantage when you're young. You can probably get away with a lot more stuff than you otherwise would. Like, there's this, I think it was Steve Jobs was like 12 or something, and he called up Mr. Packard, or like Hewlett from HP, Hewlett Packard, and asked for a job, or like asked for some type of transmitter. I forget exactly what it was, and he got a job through it. And it's not like, one thing that I used to conflate was doing these things meant that you were being successful. Like, I slept in my car a couple of nights here when I was like trying to save money, and it's just kind of foolish, but more so I think I was just trying to conform my life to what a successful life looks like. But it's actually a fallacy to try to do that. You shouldn't try to conform your life to sort of the form of these successful lives. You should look at the substance of these people's lives, and then the form will follow. What I mean is, like, how do I explain this? Form versus substance. You should look at, like, what is it that actually makes these people successful? How do they think? How do they behave? How do they operate? What's their MO? That would then lead them to do these different actions. Again, the actions themselves are consequential, are the consequences of a mode of thought, right? And so what you should really emulate is the mode of thought rather than the actions themselves. It's easy to feel like you're being entrepreneurial and you're being successful if the form of what you're doing is imitating or aligns with the form of successful people. Like, oh, I stay up late, I do this, I do that. But honestly, what you really need to focus on is the substance of it. How do they critically analyze problems? How do they operate? And then if your form is matching up, like, your form should match up as a result, but you shouldn't focus on the form itself, right? Focus on the interior aspects of what it means to be a great entrepreneur or a great business person or a great husband, father, whatever it is, honestly. And then the form will follow. Don't focus on the form, right? Like, you're not a great dad just because you take your kids to the baseball game. But if you love your kids, and if you're a good person, yada, yada, and you care for their well-being, then you'll take them to the baseball game, right? You can clearly have the form taking them to the baseball game without having the substance, being a good father, right? So hopefully that makes sense. And I think that is increasingly, that becomes painfully aware as soon as you take the leap and actually do entrepreneurship, whatever the hell that means. Because there's just no fooling yourself anymore. Like, you're responsible for it. Like, I've taken way too long to develop these products and everything. It's taken way longer. I could have done this in like 3 weeks, honestly, if I had to do it over again. And part of that was probably just because I was trying to live the form of entrepreneurship rather than the substance. Maybe that's the natural romantic, or like the honeymoon phase of it all, I suppose. It was a bit romantic. But as soon as that veneer is wiped away, it quickly becomes clear that you need to just focus on the substance and just like fuck the image, like just do it, just grind, just work. So I was going to talk about how excellence is pervasive, since, especially in these past couple of days, since my routine got screwed up. I just was not, my will wasn't strong enough to keep me on track. I was going to mention how, you know, that then started affecting all these negative aspects, and how even in a couple of days, you could see how, you know, sort of my theme of like life is momentum, how just getting off track in one thing then negatively informs and affects all the other aspects. But I'll keep that to another video. I'll probably call it like excellence is pervasive. And unfortunately, what would that be? Excellence, and what's the opposite of excellence? I don't know. I'll come up with some good word for that. But anyway, that's the video. Back on track.